Okay, I have to gallop through everything. I first of all have to apologise to you, China. You do respond to me. You just don't answer the questions that I want answers to, like the Tibetans, for example, I wrote to you about. I think you're a bit stuck in the past. But you do always respond. Russia, I wanted to say one thing to this nice young woman down here. I would like you just to do two things for me. One is tell the family of Victoria Roshina what happened to her, her fate and her whereabouts, and please give them back their body, her body. They need to be able to grieve with a body. And the other one is gravely ill Crimean Tatar human rights defender Tawfik Abdulhazayev. He qualifies for medical release under Russian law, but continues to serve his sentence. Thanks to the countries that have stepped up and invited me, really want to thank you for that. South Africa, we still haven't heard from you. I was in the room where Fakili was murdered and I put my fingers into the bullet holes that were all around. Canada, thank you for your statement. You're a great supporter of human rights defenders outside the country through your visa program, but you really have to clean up your act on extractive mining. The Canadian companies headquartered in Canada are putting human rights defenders at risk all over the world. We need mandatory human rights due diligence obligations for Canadian companies. We need to improve the power of the core, and we need to apply the voices at risk guidelines consistently and transparently. And the EU, in business and human rights, really worried about the retrograde state with the omnibus, which is now a dilution of the directive on mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence. So please do that, Georgia. I'm really sorry, but I can't agree with you. I mean, I was there on a country visit, and it was a very difficult situation for human rights defenders when I was there. And it's tragic that the situation has deteriorated since then. Same patterns are repeating themselves. Restrictive legislation, baseless investigations, smears by politicians, and physical attacks against human rights defenders. So please implement the recommendations. I just want to also say to Afghanistan, we want to try and continue supporting women human rights defenders on the ground. We are in touch with a lot of Afghani human rights defenders in exile or who are trying to leave Afghanistan, but nobody will give me visas for them. So that's that. Escazú. Mexico and Ecuador, thank you very much for ratifying Escazú. Human rights defenders say it's really important. And I wrote to all the other states and asked them to do so. I haven't heard responses, so please do that. Now, when you get to Venezuela and Cuba, I know the difference between a human rights defender. I keep telling you this. I know the difference between a human rights defender and a political activist. I know the difference between a human rights defender and a foreign agent. I know the difference between a human rights defender and a terrorist. And I know how to abide by the code of conduct. I always abide by the code of conduct. It's too simple and too nice and too easy for you to accuse me of these things. And I know you have to do it because your government wants you to protect themselves. But, the situation for human rights defenders in your country is abysmal. And don't you please say any more this rubbish about my not abiding by the code of conduct and this rubbish about, human rights defenders working for foreign people. So finally, I have 1 minute and 44, so I can keep going. The rights of peasants, it's really important. The working group on the rights of peasants, I have spoken to them. I try and will try and continue to work with them, but you all need to do your bit. I sometimes think you all forget that states are responsible for human rights, not people like me, not my beloved Orshi, who is the wonderful human rights officer who helps me. not all the other special procedures and their staff and the staff in the UN who do their best despite all the obstacles that you put in front of them. You know, you really should be supporting us. You should be supporting human rights defenders. I thank you for what you are doing. There have been some advances, but there is so much ground to make up. We know that because of the killings, the disappearances, the attacks, the discrimination, the imprisonment for long-term sentences, and the hostile environment that you subject human rights defenders to. So I will finish by pleading with you to do something yourselves. All of you have a voice. All of you have influence. All of you are able. Brazil and Colombia, although they have great difficulties in their country, they have put in place protection mechanisms. They are trying their best to protect human rights defenders in rural areas. Visits and protection mechanisms and acknowledging their legitimacy through laws, practices, and policies. Thank you.
Well, you have to agree with me that yeah.
Oh my God.